everyone, it's Camille, and in light of recent events, I'll be giving a little history lesson on abortion and reproductive rights throughout American history. I feel like a lot of people don't know, and I didn't really know any of this until I started to research it. So basically, this whole thing starts way before the United States ever existed. In ancient Egypt and other ancient civilizations, they had plenty of records of abortion as just a normal healthcare procedure. There was no stigma around it. It wasn't an issue. It was just like a normal thing that went on. And this got brought over to the United States in the 1600s. And in that time, from basically throughout most of history up until the 1800s, births and all of women's affairs were handled by midwives, and they knew all the information. They took care of all these women, and women giving birth, women having abortions, etc. But in the 1800s, men started studying gynecology. They graduated college with gynecology degrees and started these gynecology groups, and they basically took the childcare from the midwives and basically stigmatized midwives so they could move all of the business to their medical community. So now the power and childbirth is taken from the female midwives to the group of white male gynecologist doctors. And this movement was led by the father of modern gynecology. His name is J. Marion Sims, and he was the guy that was forcing experimental procedures on female slaves, testing things without their permission. But anyway, in 1857, the Medical Association of America, led by him, decided to outlaw abortion. And let me tell you why. He said, and I quote, "A woman should not be able to choose for herself because under the stimulus of uterine excitement, her mind is subject to actual derangement." Yeah, that's right. He thinks women go crazy when they're pregnant, so therefore they should not be able to choose what they do with their body. Funny. So basically, all of this is going on because this small group of white men are in charge of all women across the United States. So obviously people are getting mad. Women are trying to enter medical school to kind of break open this group. But of course, they're not admitted. Women are not allowed into medical school. They're not allowed to study. So it remains the group of white men. And this continues on until 1960, when the birth control pill was invented. But it was not allowed for use until 5 years later, when a court case finally went through that allowed married women to be prescribed birth control with permission from their husbands. But other women weren't allowed birth control at this time, only married women with consent from their husbands. So all the way forward, in 1972, Griswold versus Connecticut goes into the courts, and it rules that all women could access birth control on their constitutional right to privacy. And this right to privacy was also the basis of Roe versus Wade the year later, and also is the basis of gay marriage and interracial marriage. And why is this right to privacy so important? Because no woman has ever been protected under an Equal Rights Amendment in the Constitution, period. So this is what makes the leaked document that overturned Roe v. Wade so dangerous. It argues that because the right to abortion is not exclusively stated in the Constitution, that it should not exist at all or be upheld. But women have absolutely no rights stated at all directly in the Constitution. None. So if this right to privacy in Roe v. Wade is overturned, this sets a precedent for all other things passed on the right to privacy to also be overturned. Therefore, your right to access birth control could be taken away. your right to gay marriage could be taken away, interracial marriage could be taken away, and basically every right that females have, the majority of them for females and all other minorities are based on this right to privacy. So if one thing is peeled back, it opens the door to peel back all of these other fundamental rights of minority groups because they're not stated in the Constitution, even though the only people addressed in the Constitution are white men. Clearly, this is about more than just abortion, because this is all a ripple effect. It goes on and on. Let's keep going. After Roe v. Wade was passed, it too had its own positive effect. After that, women started entering the workforce more. They started going to college. They could own their own credit card without permission from their husband for the first time. But only after these increased successes from women did the pro-life movement start, in hopes of politicizing abortion and removing a woman's right to privacy. They successfully added rules to decrease funding, require more visits before you get an abortion, a mandatory waiting period, and all of this stuff disproportionately affected low-income and minority communities. Because if you have to drive to the abortion clinic multiple times before you're allowed one, if you have to wait a longer period, or pay more because there's less funding, if you don't have money for that, if you don't have a car for that, how are you supposed to access this healthcare? You can't. With the 2010 Affordable Care Act, birth control was increasingly affordable and more accessible. So people of all income levels could start to access birth control easier, and this led to a steep decrease in abortion rates. Increased birth control equals decreased abortion rates. So it has been proven that the best way to decrease abortion rates is not to ban them, but to provide easy access to birth control and sex education. So like I said before, the best way to lower abortion rates is with birth control and sex education. But in South Carolina and many southern states teach abstinence only, which doesn't even mention any form of birth control at all. But South Carolina is one step above. They are required to teach sex education, but they are required to stress abstinence. And the curriculum is only permitted to discuss contraception in the future context of family planning, which is really harmful to, teens who aren't thinking about family planning. They're thinking about what's right in front of them. And the curriculum is not required to be comprehensive. South Carolina has no standard requiring medically accurate sex education either. And because of these limiting and restrictive requirements, sex education varies greatly across the state. So, people are fighting to ban abortions, to stop abortions, but they're passing laws to restrict sex ed, restrict birth control. We've established, right, that the best way to lower abortion rates is to increase access to birth control and sex education. So why are we making sex education and birth control access worse if we want abortions to go down? It's almost like it's not about abortion. In 2019, flash forward to recently, abortion rates were at a record low of all time. But suddenly, Republicans began a movement to ban abortion in almost all the southern states, 25 states all across the US, mainly in the South, when abortions were at a record low. So what triggered that? Maybe it's not about abortion at all. Maybe it's just about controlling women. Let's go back to what I said about the right to privacy. And, you may be thinking, okay, if Roe v. Wade is overturned, that's really going to be the end of it. No one's going to take away my right to birth control. No one's going to take away gay marriage. Those things are set in stone. Well, actually, you'd be wrong. Because while a lot of states are putting in trigger laws to ban abortion, Louisiana's trying to pass a law that criminalizes an IUD. And anyone that gets an IUD will be charged with homicide because you're killing a fertilized egg, which counts as a human being. So now you can't get an abortion, and you won't be able to get birth control either. So let's just think about all the things that can actually happen next, because they're not going to stop at abortion. They're already attacking birth control. And what's gonna come next? There's no telling. There's no telling where this is gonna end. So that was just a quick history lesson, general things. Thank you for listening. And I just implore everyone to go do their own research and read up about the implications of overturning Roe v. Wade, because it truly isn't just about abortion. It's about a lot more than that. And I want everyone to see that this isn't like a simple matter, and that overturning Roe v. Wade is actually fatal to all women and minorities across America. So I just hope that maybe someone's eyes could be open to the true implications of overturning Roe v. Wade. Go register to vote. Go vote in the midterms, prelims, and in November, and thank you for watching.